Thanks again, Tomas, Doug. We are transitioning to our next conversation, and it's AI and partner-led growth. Welcome, Jay McBain.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited about this topic.
We're really excited too. Let's do a quick round of introductions, everyone.
Sure, I can go first. I think I'm on the left side of the slide. Jay McBain, Chief Analyst for Canalys. Canalys is Latin for channel. However, the channel space has changed pretty considerably in the last couple of years. And I've got some of the people on the panel here who have been responsible for those changes. So excited to kind of dive into this conversation and move on. I've got Bob next to me here, so we'll kind of go to you next.
Amazing. Thanks for having me, Jay. It is great to be here. My name is Bob Moore. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Crossbeam, which is about 6 years old. And we are a platform that helps companies collaborate across company lines with their data. So we take the age-old process of account mapping, which is basically how companies compare CRM data. And we bring that into the cloud in a kind of secure, tightly controlled manner to unlock the Venn diagram of things like how many customers you and your partners have in common, or how and where your sales pipelines overlap. And kind of by unlocking that data layer, there's an incredible universe of ways in which you can unlock new workflows and ultimately train and provide context for AI agents and do other exciting things I'm sure we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Dina, you're next.
Hi,
Bob.
Jay. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm the Global Partner Marketing Director at Intel Corporation. So I am overseeing this strategy and go-to-market development for at this point, our top global system integrators. So it's been pretty exciting as we are integrating AI in various ways, and really being that collaboration champion, both internally and externally within the industry as a whole, to bring success for our customers and our partner ecosystem. So great to be here. Looking forward to this.
That's fantastic. Megan?
Yes. Hi, Megan Eisenberg. I'm the CMO of Samsara. We're all about improving the safety, efficiency, and sustainability of operations that power the global economy. So all those folks out there, frontline workers, driving trucks, construction sites, keeping them safe and keeping the roads safe. So excited to be here, talk a little bit about growth with partners.
That's great and fantastic. And Blake?
Awesome. I'm Blake Williams, CEO of Demandy, and what we've been helping brands do, we're about a year old, but we kind of took a different approach. Instead of the brand-to-brand co-marketing activity, we are doing a lot of brand-to-network co-marketing. It primarily happens on social, but we're getting people, because people buy from people, we're getting those people in front of each other's customers, opportunities, and prospects, so we can have that audience cross-pollination. So that's what we do.
Oh, great. Welcome. And what a great panel. I'm excited about this. Julia, how long do we have? Time check?
54 minutes.
54 minutes. So let's jump right in, I think. I want to, kind of just frame this a little bit with, a lot's going on. I mentioned kind of the channel world. There's, the partnership world. There's the alliance world, this broader ecosystem, and this kind of move over into the, a much more important part of the go-to-market motion. And there was a point, and some companies, there's still a point where, marketing, is somewhat siloed from sales, which is siloed from CX, which is siloed from product, who are building integrations. And then the partners that, traditionally have been viewed as cash registers. 75% of world trade, the $105 trillion of GDP last year, flowed indirectly. So how we bought a car, how we bought a TV, how we buy peanut butter, but across all 27 industries, the dealerships, the agencies, the brokers, the resellers, retailers, franchisees, the gas stations, the pharmacy, whichever industry you want to talk about, it's always been viewed, measured, paid at that point of sale. The one thing that we're learning, today, especially in the platform economy, is that the average customer going through their 28 moments before they make us purchase actually have 7 partners. And that's not according to me, that's according to McKinsey, who advises every one of the Fortune 500 boards. So if there's 7 partners who have spent decades earning that trust and are the most important people around that customer, how do we think about marketing? How do we think about sales? How do we think about CX through to and with these really important people that surround? Last thing I'm going to say is, in sales, Salesforce puts out a state of sales every year. And, this year's state of sales report, which, interviewed 5,500 CROs and VPs of sales around the world in all industries, in all geographies. It's at a point now where 89% of salespeople are using partners every day. For the 11% who are not, 58% plan to within the next 12 months. And it was not a good selling environment in 2024. Over half of the salespeople in the world did not make their numbers. But for those that did, 84% of them pointed to partners as the reason why. So we've seen, HubSpot came out with a report in marketing, and it's close to 84% as well. And so we're starting to get to this point of this decade of the ecosystem where all of the go-to-market motions are coming together and getting pretty obsessed over the 7 partners surrounding not only the first 28 moments, but every one of our renewals, every one of our enrichment and upsell, cross-sell opportunities for this customer for life. So love to kind of move through the panel on the road here and how you frame up this moment. And I know, Bob, you've thought a lot about this kind of convergence of channel and partnerships into go-to-market.
Yeah, it's very, very true. Thanks, Jay. And thanks for that tee up. I think it's pretty undeniable the outside looking in, just overall amount of influence and impact that ecosystems at large kind of have had historically and are having on the way companies build their businesses. But I think there's a bunch of other trends afoot here that end up having these really interesting force multiplier impacts on all of that foundation from which we build, right? And they're all kind of converging in this era in a way that I think is actually going to radically amplify the impact of, whatever label you want to put on it, partners or ecosystems or alliances, et cetera. The lines are increasingly blurring, but the impact is able to be significantly larger because of those blurred lines. So specifically, what we're seeing is, as the evolution of the API economy and the widespread adoption of the cloud and kind of the late stage of the digital transformation movement have pushed virtually every business that is operating at any kind of scale into being operated and their data being primarily stored in these cloud-based applications and cloud-based locations. It means that there's this incredibly high amount of interoperability that can exist between both technology tools and the services providers that bring those tools together, whether that's system integrators, agency partners, or anybody else in the traditional channel. And because you lower these barriers to interoperability, it means that you greatly increase the way in which you can scale systems, workflows, playbooks, where that interoperability is a key part of how you make a sale get done. So what that means from a practical standpoint is that companies that may have historically been partners because they issued a press release together or had some customers in common or embarked upon a partnership because they had a multi-year joint venture development where they created a product together. Now the bar is exceptionally lower, where the amount of technical lift and the amount of effort required to build a product integration, or potentially the amount of effort required to train a sales team or bring go-to-market folks up to speed with how such an integration or collaboration brings value. These things are going from multi-million-dollar investments with multi-month commitments to kind of the foundational operating system of how companies create value and kind of formulate new value propositions. So just the general movement, independent of the channel, of this whole digital transformation movement that enterprises have been talking about for the last 20 years, really reaching these late stages, just creates this incredible unlock where the ability to do the best of the best things that we're creating value through partnerships and partner channels is now accessible to everyone, right? And if you look at, there's 30,000 companies on Crossbeam. We've got plenty of large publicly traded enterprises, but let's be honest, 25, 26,000 of those companies are, probably less than 1,000 employees. They're all doing this too. And I think that's an important thing, which is that it has kind of pushed the gatekeeping aspect of this that used to be about finance and about scale down into simply gatekeeping around awareness and around the will to actually do it. I'm sure we'll talk about AI later because there's a very obvious like what's next component of this. So I'll kick that can down the road, but I think it is very, very exciting to watch just the incredible accessibility of these ecosystem-led growth strategies to virtually every company out there that is able to make their value proposition stronger by working with some third party or second party. And that's really at the root of why we're seeing so much momentum in these recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. And AI does really good in very complex environments, non-linear environments. And when you think about your addressable market, your available market, your obtainable market, multiply that by 7 partners, multiply that then by 7 layers of a stack that they're going to be buying to solve their problem, you get into some pretty large numbers. And partnership seems to be a natural for AI. So Dina, kind of same question over to you, kind of how we've progressed and where we are now. I sold PCs for 17 years, worked closely with Intel in terms of that, but not only are you participating in the $7 trillion build out of AI on the infrastructure side, Intel has even a more complex go-to-market with
We
OEMs and
do.
all the ways the
Yeah.
product is embedded in so many of the products that we use every day. So how are you thinking about this journey?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and you said it very well. Like we are unique. If you think about us, we are what you'd call a core ingredient to an offering or a solution when it comes to the ISVs, our CSPs, the OEMs. So we are, when it comes to go to market, we look at it at get to market and go to market end to end. But when we look at go to market, that is truly critical as you need to align to the partner ecosystem strategies, but you also have to understand the real aspects of these what is your product, that value proposition that's powering up and truly contributing to the success of that offer as a core ingredient, the hardware, the software, the services, and what we're packaging. So that is where we're at. And we look at the partner ecosystem altogether in terms of how we go to market to, through, and with our partners. And it's been pretty interesting. The one thing we are doing is putting in more glue in the internal infrastructure ecosystem to provide that to external, because right now, as you had said earlier on, it's been so siloed, and we are eliminating that. That is not how we can survive, even from an AI perspective, which I'll talk about a little later when we touch on that. But we are in such, I think what has led us to this point, when we think of it from Intel perspective, or I think from all of us, we're in a hyper competitive market right now. Data explosion is happening. And we really need to look at how can we assess our data platforms, our data estate, so we have the ability to use AI, jump in and put your, whether you're dipping your toes or you're more advanced, really engaging in that right way from an objective and strategy perspective. So we're doing a lot that way, but that's how we look at ourselves and the approach to go to market when it comes to an ingredient into the core solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And what a great segue to Megan, because we're in a world that is creating mountains of data. You think of Internet of Things and all of these sensors and cameras and everything out there leading to safety. But it's the accumulation of all that data, the training and tuning, indexing, inferring of that data to get to that next action. So Megan, you also have kind of a bifurcated view of this. On the one side, you're driving so much change in this future of AI, and the second side of it, you're serving over a dozen industries.
Yes.
And just the partnership math looks infinite in terms of how all these pieces and parts, including when you inject public sector into all these things. So how do you look at where we are in the journey that got us here?
Yeah, I think about your number 7 on average, and then I think about Samsara. We have over 300 partners and integrations for the platform. But I think the bigger point is you probably, without AI, only have the bandwidth for 7. If you think about your teams and the go-to-market and how do you scale, and those 7 partners probably have 200 or 300 partners trying to vie for their attention. So the partners that are going to be most successful are the ones where you can create the content, you can enable their sales teams, they can enable yours. You can really paint the vision of why these joint solutions matter for going to market. So I definitely think a lot about this at Samsara. What can we do to move faster? Because our that does scale a business, not just direct, but they're out there talking to, especially as you go up to enterprise, and they're used to working with partners for technology and solutions to help modernize their businesses and their stacks. So this matters a ton for us, and this topic I think is really relevant for us and how we're going to scale go to market with our partners.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Blake, kind of I've known you as an ecosystem leader, ecosystem-led growth leader since I think the day I met you.
Yep.
You've been out there with a big brain thinking about how all these things form.
Yeah.
A few years later, as the napkin we had back then is starting to form and create really large markets, with many more buyers than we think before. How do you think about this, where we are and leading up to this and how do you position this?
Yeah. What I see, even the brands that we work with and what Megan just talked about, is you really only have the bandwidth or resources. You've got this long tail of partnerships and a choke point that happens between all the other go-to-market functions and the rest of that partner base. It's rife with traditional friction, right? So
Yeah.
agentic AI and new approaches going brand to network allows you to start to incorporate far more people into that conversation. And for the time being, until it's data and agents talking to each other, buying on our behalf, for this little blip period of time, incorporating more people to get that message out allows you to share their own perspective on your value proposition together and then deploy that. So I see that network. It's kind of the footprints in the snow. The technology that a lot of people are building are now supporting the processes that people typically use to buy software anyway at any level, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's getting referred or eventually bought. So I see AI just accelerating that curve faster than we can keep up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's go into AI next. I know Bob was asking for it and you just finished on it. So, most of us in tech have known that AI has been around a long time. When I was, a young person, I joined IBM as an intern out of college. We were just getting ready to play Gary Kasparov at chess. The first time a computer had ever beat a grandmaster. And since that time in 1996, a grandmaster's never beat a computer since. It's very simple brute force that a computer can play the whole game back and forward and figure out every permutation and make the best move every single time. And that's beyond a human that might even be able to see 3 moves ahead. 15 years later, it was taken on Jeopardy. And that's not as much brute force now as it is generative AI. When you're asked a question, you get about, a millisecond to press the button, and then you're given 4 seconds to go read the internet cover to cover and tell Alex, in the form of a question, what the answer. And, Google went on and beat Go. And, this has been going on for 30 years. But here we are in March of 23, all of our non-technical, family, friends, and neighbors saw ChatGPT writing poetry, recording music, deep fakes. And this was the moment that we all got the phone call in a panic. Did we just light up Skynet? Is Arnold Schwarzenegger, coming back to shoot things up? Is this the end of humanity? We all had to quickly in March of 23 kind of come up with what it is and frame it out for folks. But it created a new 20-year era in tech. We went through 20 years of client server. We went through 20 years of cloud. And this is now a $7 trillion build out of that next era. Even in the last couple of weeks, you've seen $2 trillion of that 7 being committed by governments and companies. So here we are in this new era. And now all the professionals, in go-to-market across every, part of every division needs to figure out not just what their co-pilot might do to help their current job role, but how their company competitively is going to stay ahead and perhaps get an advantage by being a first mover. And what this means, agentic AI, generative AI? What's that next cycle? So I'll change up the order a little bit here, go to Megan first. And, kind of where we are now, just looking forward a little bit, how would you guide folks where we are now? I mean, it's, our co-pilots aren't doing things like Blake was mentioning for us yet. It's not booking flights. It's not changing our lives. The apps aren't dropping off our phone, or the internet, isn't dropping sites yet. But what do we do now, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, I think about partner growth. There's kind of four areas that I'm looking at and how we use it and moving forward. Certainly, content creation. We all know that and that leads into really the second one. But creating the story better together. You can parse their websites. You can add it. How would we match really well with this partner? What would be the best go-to-market message? What do people care about? Let's look at joint customers on their website compared to ours. What's the customer DNA that matches that we can go after? In the content creation, you've got case studies, you've got blogs, ebooks, sales enablement content. There's so much that it can produce right away that you would take weeks before to get done. You can get it done in a day or two. I think the second thing, or third, if you do story creation, but the third would be let's figure out who to recruit for partners. Let's ask it. Who would be a natural partner for us that's out there that maybe has similar joint customers or DNA, and use AI to generate a list of potential partners to go after. Increase your 7 to 200 or 300. Do a SWOT analysis and how it makes sense, right? Just there's so much thinking and stuff that can be done with it. And we're doing some of this already at Samsara. And then lastly, I think performance analysis. How's the partnership working? Let's look at the data. What's converting? What's the attribution? And rank our partners. Who are our best partners to be working with? Rank our partners by industry. So when I'm working with sales teams, they say, these are the three partners you should work with, or the top partner you should work with. There's so much analysis that you can do. And when you look at your competition, you can even do things with AI. Look at their reviews. Look at your reviews. Look at your partner reviews. Look at your competition. You can run G2 through it and say, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How would we complement each other? How do we position ourselves against them? And it's awesome to see. Our CEO has looked at a lot of this data, and he goes out there and analyzes a lot of the data out there and comes back and says, here's what I was having fun over the weekend and I'm looking at this stuff and mining all this really amazing information that we can go act on the go-to-market front.
That's fantastic. I love how you jumped to measurements, because that was one of the questions we got. One of the first questions we got was on metrics and things like that, because that's pretty much the first thing is, how do we monitor and measure and manage this? We've got a lot of people around us, financial folks want those measurements to be reliable. They want them to be repeatable. And like I said, in terms of scale, the force multiplier partnerships, they have to be scalable too. So, this is not an easy thing to do. And that's probably the first thing before we get too far down the path. Dina, what's your thought kind of on what's the next step, and how important are measurements and metrics and other things to that?
Yeah, I think I have two angles on this. The first is about how we harness AI, and it really is about looking at AI. I mean, first, what I'll do is caveat that there's just so much hype going on in the industry right now. How do we break the noise? How do you take a step back and truly look at your go-to-market strategy, understand where AI can start to contribute, treat it as part of your community, treat it as a team member. So literally, I encourage our teams, let's look at, let's have that team member help develop a market analysis, segment analysis. What is customer segmentation? Do we need a team member to help write an agency brief? Things of that nature. So I look at it from that perspective, look at AI as a collaborator versus a tactical task, and bring it in as part of the strategy. We still need human judgment. You still need to ensure you're aligning to your strategy, internal, your messaging, your framework. So you need to always have that overlay, as well as with your partner overlay as you're working with them. But really look at it holistically, end to end, and really look at it as a team member. I mean, we're looking at it in our sales. We're looking at it in content creation, as Megan had mentioned. but literally in not just content, but really that market and segment analysis as well as we're putting business cases together and our go-to-market plans together. So it's been invaluable that way. The one call out I would say in terms of action we should be taking, and I think, Bob, you mentioned this, and I think even the previous panelists actually brought this up. It's going to be AI. We're like, if we're looking at the web and we're looking at how we are going to be using AI, it's not us going in anymore. It's going to be AI, that team member. So the most important thing we can be doing is sharpening our current skill in terms of prompts. Prompts is going to be the best thing to do right now. So I'd encourage everyone on that, because, and refine them and refine them and refine them. It is for internal and external collaboration with your AI resource or community member. So that's what I would offer for us.
Yeah, that's great. And there's not a lot of people at Intel that are dialing end users directly. So
No,
when you're putting
right.
together the marketing, it's, you know, Intel plus Dell, HP, Lenovo, Asus, Acer, plus a distributor, plus a VAR, MSP, maybe multiple
Yes,
partners.
yes.
Then picking up all of that and then serving a mid-sized bank in Inverness, Scotland, who's having a particular problem. When you add all that
Yes,
layers to AI, it could get smart enough then, you know, to
yes,
actually make
yes,
something personalized and customized. And then again, how do you scale and measure that? Blake, kind of over to
Yeah.
you in terms of you know, the state of AI today and what you would recommend people, you know, kind of think about at this point in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, partner programs are traditionally just rife with points of friction, and the value of your ecosystem is a rumor until you're activating it, right? So there's some key things that need to happen, right? Opportunity identification, and then opportunity evaluation, and then opportunity justification, and then the enablement of going after that opportunity. So I think today, some of the things you can do, yes, prompting, but you should also be thinking about how do you create agentic tests that can communicate with each other. We're doing it internally today. It's not in production, but we're testing it today to see how agents can offset some of those points of friction for us to start to get a faster throughput from good data that we think means something into justifiable action that people want to take and go into market. So I think that's what you need to be doing. Just test.
Yeah, another great segue, because, you know, in agent world, you know, everything becomes headless. And I start to think of the power of data and data matching and mapping. And if you go across those moments and they read my ebook and they listened to your podcast and they went to my website and they went to your event, and you start to collect these, you know, very important things out of your marketing platforms, out of your sales CRM platforms, and like you said, pulling this back into partnering and guiding people, getting, you know, salespeople connected and working to
Yes.
move that customer through the rest of the moments, you know, to
Yes.
ensure a positive outcome. So, you know, Bob, I think, is the inventor and obviously the person that thinks probably more about this than anyone in the world. So this is your AI question, Bob, that you were asking for.
Thanks. This is so fun. So I think one of the really important things to remember about all of this is the way that these LLMs get trained in the first place, and the initial body of training data, at least in the large scale models, the ones that are widely consumed from OpenAI and others. They're trained on basically public data, right? And it's a lot of public data. It's an absolutely impressive, monstrous amount of collected data across a limitless number of modalities. But it's trained on data that is by definition commoditized because it was able to be ingested and kind of put into the core knowledge base of these things. And when you go to ChatGPT and ask it a question to you know, analyze your market or say something about your company or take a look at what it knows about your partner ecosystem or how you should run a strategy. The interesting thing to remember is that your competitor or a upstart kid at a Y Combinator startup that wants to compete with you can ask ChatGPT that same exact question and it will get the same exact answer, right? And therefore, the commoditization is not just in the training data, it's in the ability to extract the knowledge and insights and leverage out of these models, which is why there's so much disruption in the air, and everything's kind of so scary all at the same time as it's exciting. The thing that's so critical and gets to your question about unlocking these new data layers is that these LLMs and the kind of the underlying model of using transformers to create these generative models in the first place. Part of what is so awesome about them is the existence of this concept of a context window, right? Your LLM is trained on all this public knowledge, but depending on the model you're using, you can create a context window where you basically provide it with a certain amount of awareness that is specific to you and your session and your conversation or set of reasoning that you are doing with it. And inside that context window, you can put things that by definition only you know. And by definition are things that are only sitting inside of your walled gardens. You can put your CRM data in there. You can put your Crossbeam data in there. That'll tell you every single customer you have in common with all your partners and every single sales deal you have going on right now where a partner has also had a call with them in the last week. And it's when you start to get into this realm where you've got these LLMs where there's a specific agent that has been created whose context window is something that is proprietary to you, where you start to get really proprietary leverage and you start to be able to really build things that can make a really big impact. So I'll give you an example. At Crossbeam, we've completely internally with no outside tech outside of kind of a commoditized like OpenAI's O3 model that we use for this. We have built an internal agent fleet where every single sales rep at the company, they have their very own agent that is constantly looking at the fire hose of buying signals that are coming out of our product and product-led growth signals, who's doing what in the product, publicly available news sources through Google News, ecosystem-led growth data from Crossbeam about how all of our partners are interacting with and engaging with their book of business. Along with all your classic marketing signals like who's landing on our website, who's reading blog posts, who's downloading forms, who's clicked on an ad, etc. And this fire hose of data gets back to my original point about the confluence of all these factors. We've had all this data the whole time. This fire hose of information, we've been operating this company 5-6 years. We set up 90% of what I just described in the first year when we were 3 people in an apartment, right? So what's different now is that we have a infinite amount of intelligent labor that is capable of reasoning with and consuming this fire hose and making discretionary decisions about among the million events that have happened among the 500 companies that are in this rep's book of business in the last 24 hours. When they show up at their desk in the morning at 9 a.m., what are the 5 companies that they absolutely need to make sure that they reach out to? And what's the context around why? And that's what they're getting. When our reps log into Slack every single morning, they get this briefing that is kind of like a dossier of this is the processing that's gone on. And the LLMs are extremely good at doing it and good reasoning because of all of this large public data that they've been trained on and kind of the magnitude of like the foundational models. But they're only able to be useful to our company because of the context window that they possess. And no competitor, no Y Combinator startup, no anybody could go and build that specific implementation, right? So when you talk about why, bring this all back to partners and ecosystems, a really key piece of that, and frankly, the most proprietary piece of data that I mentioned in terms of what our agents consume is that ecosystem-led growth data, right? It's the fact that we've got this opportunity that's stuck, but we had a partner that just had a call with the person yesterday who hasn't returned our calls in 3 weeks, right? It's like these pieces of intelligence that can work their way into the next best decision that needs to get made by a worker at your company just creates this incredible force multiplier that no amount of brilliant coding would have been capable of doing if the LLM was not sitting there behind the scenes being capable of reasoning, prioritizing, et cetera. And like that is the magic. That's where the magic's happening and where it's all coming together. And where I think this ecosystem data goes from being something you really had to understand and grok and have all your sales reps like know what to do with to being something where it is a very, very big part of like the equation of what actually matters. And the agents are going to be way better than the sales reps at knowing why. And then the agents can actually, to Tomash's point on the session that just ended, when he talks about sales training and sales accountability being like maybe the most disruptive thing that might happen in the next 5 years, that's it, right? This is like the amount of silver platters that information and next steps are about to be served up on for sales reps is astronomical. And that creates a level of commoditization that makes training and assessment also really, really kind of a new beast compared to what it was before. But I'll end my rant there. But that's that's at the core of it.
Yeah, that's great. So let me take all that and add a wrinkle. We just are going through a demographic shift where the majority buyer, for example, in the $5.4 trillion tech industry, just changed over to a millennial born after 1982. So here's a cohort that, Gartner just did a study and, surveyed them all. 75% of your majority buyer now doesn't want to talk to a human. They'll go and buy a car in their personal life, second most expensive thing. For many millennials who can't afford houses, the most expensive thing they'll ever buy, without ever talking to a person, without any human interaction. Going to buy $1 million worth of software, ending up at a digital marketplace, which are growing at 82% compounded, almost doubling each year. So in this world of 75% of people may not want to talk to a human in the traditional marketing, sales, and customer success journey. Now we're going to have to do much more digitally. So AI, in terms of making these matches, connecting the dots across all these moments and guiding the customer, without human interaction. So that becomes kind of the next phase looking forward, is a demographic shift that's causing, all kinds of interesting changes as well. So Blake, I'll come to you first on this time. How do you think about this? And I know you're building, a company that kind of is at that intersection. And the good news is we're all millennials on this panel, so we can really talk from firsthand. Oh, that was a joke.
Experience. Yeah.
Blake, go ahead.
I'm a millennial. elder millennial. So if we just take Software just did a product launch with us, and the way that we do things, right? It's all about short form video and text on social. And they had their investors, internal people. They had experts, 60 experts that are, small agency owners, as well as integration partners, all create content around their feature release and their rebrand. And so it was something like 700 videos that started to trickle out actually from yesterday throughout the end of the month. And what we're doing, to Bob's point, is capturing that ecosystemic signal. Everybody has their own point of view, and they're dropping that in front of their audience. And we're pulling some of that engagement, the comments, and then surfacing that for high intent. And obviously, if we had an integration with Crossbeam, I'd go find out, what partner has this person as a customer, and then surface up a nearbound play so I could trigger an intro. What I think is going to happen is that, my first job out of college, I actually worked for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company in their procurement department. It wasn't long. I didn't last there, but I know a lot about the buying process. And as soon as we start to see agents start to interpret our own intent for us and surface that intent, it'll be able to visit those marketplaces on our behalf, and up to a certain procurement threshold, execute on our behalf, and then surface up triggers that we just need to approve. And then I think we're going to see the purchase volume, instead of these annual contracts, it'll go down to buy the drink happening. And then I don't know what happens to my business, sales or marketing, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't need it. You just need to talk to your AI agent, communicate your intent with your business. It'll probably tell you what you should be worried about and thinking about, and then you can react and it'll go execute on your behalf. But I think I don't want to think about that, at least not for the next 3 years, but that's probably.
I'll see you in Cabo in 4 years, Blake.
Let's do it.
It's the only thing left to do.
Yeah.
to extend the vision is, when your car self-reports that it needs tires, and your co-pilot goes and does all this work on your behalf and makes decisions on your behalf, that self-driving car at 3 a.m. drives itself out to a warehouse near the airport. And by the time you go to work in the morning, you smell new fresh rubber when you open your garage. So this is the whole, idea where we will all be fishing in Cabo, and, life will move on. But Dina, let's kind of come back on a little bit on the demographic. You've got kind of bifurcated go-to-market at this point with Intel. Intel's also having a moment. You've got, 4 years ago, next month, we all went home with new laptops because of COVID. We tried to find PCs anywhere to give to our employees.
Yeah.
But all of those PCs are now 4 years old. They're going to be replaced with AI-enabled PCs that you showed off at CES, and all your partners showed off at CES. Microsoft pulled back support for Windows 10, which is another cycle for this year. That's a double. And then kind of the triple is this whole move towards building a more robust edge, because 80% of processing of these models will be done out on edge devices, whether a
Yes.
smartphone or a PC. So it's causing double-digit growth in the PC market, which doesn't come around often. But now
Yeah.
you've got kind of a new buyer, and how do you kind of play all this out from a channel marketing perspective?
Yeah, I think a number of ways, and I guess depending on the persona we're talking about, whether it's consumer or commercial, we think the elements are similar. One of the things that we're looking at, and we're very excited, by the way, when it comes to the new processors that are coming up, it's just amazing in the power that we're implementing, and really truly, when we think about the end user, really contributing to what they're looking for when you think of that demographic or all of the demographic segments. So one of the things we're looking, I mean, everybody, I like to call it the let's disrupt and cut the clutter and the noise that's out there, that sea of sameness that everybody's talking about. We really are cutting into that and really looking at how do we do more experiential, interactive approaches, especially in the segment where you were talking about, the demographic you were talking about. That's very key to them. It is about personalization. Now, there has been hyper personalization, but it's also about how they make decisions, whether it's through their forums, that word of mouth and the way that decision making is flowing. We're really taking that into account. But let's take the developers. We're highly engaged with developers in market as well. That audience, those partners, developer partners we are working with, are truly interested still in person in many ways. Get them into the tech workshops, get them with hands-on, get that experiential and interactive feel going with product. And how do we enable them, the heroes? It's about the hero and putting on the super cape for them and enabling success for them. So we're doing that. Call it the hero makers. And then when you think of the consumer, same thing. Everyone wants the long battery life. Everybody wants the type of thing, but really about that end use on productivity and other essential uses for what enables the consumer, whether you're a student, whether you're a shopper, whether you're, whatever you're doing, the automotive buyer, really enabling the bringing it to life in a more automated fashion, and how AI built in can help securely, productively, and fulfill that better together packaging that we really need in market right now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So Megan, when I think about hyper personalization, I think about safety. It's not just a broad-based banner like, hey, how many days since our last accident? It's every single person on a job site, every single person kind of in the connected eco. They all have very unique and specific guidance on how to keep them safe at an individual level. And then, kind of the second part of the question is, again, evolving buyer. Not going to the trade show, industry show the same way they might have in the past. Maybe not reading the magazines the way they did in the past. How do you think of peer groups and all these digital groups coming together with AI and go to market?
Yeah, so I mean, to your point on safety and vehicles, and a little bit back to the vehicles that drive themselves to fix themselves, we're not too far from that. I mean, when we look at Samsara, we provide a list of preventative maintenance. We see your tires, your braking, all of that on your trailers, and if I'm running a fleet, I log in and I can see immediately what needs to get done. We use AI to say, okay, what's that code mean? Okay, what does that mean that I need to do? We distribute training. We're ranking drivers, helping them be safer. So all of that's already in play. We haven't pushed the button to go drive and change the tires yet. So that will come to your point next. I think that's exciting. When I think about the buyer, your second question, and I think about 6 months ago, for the first time, I saw a technology. You may be familiar with Amanda Carlisle. She's kicked off a company called OneMind, and it's actually creating the human-like experience where you can interact with them. And so I think about the buyer. Okay, I'm talking to an SE where I don't need a human SE. Like, the knowledge is all there. I need to talk to an ADR to understand and ask questions or qualify or see a demo. That's all automated. I think about chat. chat on a website. I'm a partner. I'm coming to learn about the solution. I need to learn more. I can do enablement through these chat humans. I can do selling. And when she showed it to me, I think about 6 months ago, I was like, "Ooh, but what if it's not accurate or hallucinations?" And she kind of laughed because she said, "Do you think your ADRs are 100% accurate?" And I was like, "Ooh, good point." They're ramping. They're right out of college. They're learning our material. They're only as much as we've enabled them, but all these sources that we hook into these interactive chats, they've got access to all of your material, unlimited information. They're probably, even if they were 95% accurate, that's probably 10x, if not 100x better than what the human can, think about. I think Tomas is talking about that as well. So when I think about the buyer experience, yeah, we're going to use a lot more AI to interact and answer questions. And that's also going to be huge cost savings to have that. And I can think of 1,000 ways that we can do it across web properties and chats and just any of the interactions that we're going to do.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And, I think about hallucinations. I think about the first 2 years of this era. And, Bill Gates back in 96, we overestimate what's going to happen in 2 and then underestimate what's going to happen in 10 in our industry. And it happened. All this flurry of hype that Dina talked about hasn't really resulted. The GSIs are growing at like 2%, underperforming an industry growing at 8%. And all the people we thought would have immediate success with AI are not. So, it's been a little bit of a slow roll. One of the things, a chatbot in Canada cooled the market globally. It's when Air Canada's chatbot told somebody who's, asking about a bereavement and gave them advice, and they totally made it up. It wasn't anywhere in the training materials. It wasn't anywhere they couldn't find it. So it went to court and Air Canada lost. And they kept moving it up. It went to the Supreme Court. And Air Canada just used its standard defense, which every airline uses, which is it's a tech glitch. If flights went to $1 on the website, it's a glitch. No one would expect to get a flight for $1. So therefore, we're free. And then the Supreme Court said, no, going back to your inside reps, your chatbot, you own the training, you own the tuning, you own the hallucinations. You need to treat that. So this became, for every bank and for every insurance company and other industries, when the Supreme Court starts looking at your AI as human, and you've got to take responsibility and you got to put that into your risk factor, that somebody on subreddit says, hey, go ask the chatbot this question, you get a free flight. It becomes a material thing. And, there's things like that are going to change, compliance, legal, everything else. But I thought it was just an interesting tidbit when you said, do you think your ADRs get it right all the time? What if you're held to a different standard than just, the tech glitch that we've always, kind of backed into in the tech industry? So, Bob, kind of bring us home on this one, new buyers, new kind of go to market, digital first, digital only marketplaces. You might be sending these matches and you might be sending this early journey advice, to non-humans. And how do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like I saw a New Yorker cartoon or something recently where there's some tech worker and they're saying, this is so great. I just sent one sentence over to ChatGPT and it made it into this amazing page-long email. And then on the other side, there's another tech worker saying, oh, this is so great. I just received this page-long email and ChatGPT condensed it down into one sentence for me. And I do think there's a little bit of that potentially starting to go on that should get really, really interesting, where as language starts to become almost abstracted in some ways, especially as we get into all these extra new modalities of voice and imagery and the blending of that in things like these kind of fully video enabled SDRs and things like that. It's very natural to ask the question, like, are we just going to have a bunch of robots talking to robots talking to robots? And what's left when you have that? And I think in those closed loop systems, the real thing that ends up remaining is this core question of like value proposition, right? And I think significantly more things will drop down to lowest common denominator, kind of commoditized, the exchange of information, the efficiency of doing that, the idea of training and kind of entry level work maybe getting modified. But what it does is it unlocks this period where you can actually start to work on higher order problems, which start to be really fun. And if you think back to as an analog the days in which the mobile web started emerging, right? People love to compare this to the dawn of the internet, but I think like the dawn of mobile is a more recent one we can all access. You think about applications like Uber, where Uber's incredible, but it stands on the shoulders of giants, right? Like you can't have Uber unless everyone is holding a mobile device, and that mobile device is connected to a non-Wi-Fi source so that it works when they're standing on a street corner. They also need to have GPS enabled. Like, we had to have like a multi-decade long effort for government-funded satellite systems to get launched into low Earth orbit so that these little devices we hold in our pockets could know where we were all the time. You've got to have mobile payment and transaction systems that work really well. It's the confluence of all these things happening at the same time that then unlock this magic that allows us to change the way we even think about realizing value from the things we already know, right? And it goes from the automobile to the taxi to ultimately kind of the Uber model, and now it's going to go into the autonomously driving version of that Uber model that knows where you need to go and when before you even necessarily need to interface with it. That doesn't mean that jobs are going away, and it doesn't mean that efficiency is going down. I think it just means that it is a net contributor to quality of life and the efficiency and high leverage use of human capital and human time. And if humans have been really, really good at one thing over and over and over again throughout history, it's being terrified by new technology that's going to take away all the jobs, and then being amazed by how the most exciting, highest growth, fastest growth industries and innovations that have happened came very much out of that same exact set of technologies. And as interesting and as many unanswered questions as there may be about this wave, I think this is history repeating itself in that regard, and I'm significantly more excited than I am scared.
That's awesome. I think I agree with you. So kind of to wrap this up, we've got 6 minutes. So let's do kind of a rapid fire here. Look forward. We will save this video for all of eternity to come back and see if you're right or wrong. But let's look back. Let's look beyond tomorrow. Let's look maybe even beyond 2025, 2026. Longer term, partnership led, AI driven go to market. Where does this end up? And if you're thinking about that career in the future, what skills should you be building? So with 1 minute each, I'll start with Megan.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the future in some ways, perfect solution and matchmaking. Buyers are going to find sellers, and it's going to be that much more efficient. So I think to prepare for that is, make sure you know how to use the technology, you're enabling it, and you've got good content out there, and you know how you're being crawled by AI tools and Gen AI.
That's fantastic. Dina, bring us home.
I'd say work on those prompts. Back it up, look at your entire go-to-market strategy. Think of AI as a contributor, a team member, and where you can get the biggest output and ROI, either from a productivity or investment standpoint. And lastly, train. I mean, it's part of it. We're merging. And I have a book I'd recommend, Life 3.0, Max Tegmark. Great book, and gives us a lot of possibilities to be thinking about across cloud computing, healthcare, everything, and much more. So I would leave it at that. It's here with us. So let's welcome them and collaborate with it. So
awesome. Great advice. I jotted down the book. Blake.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to AI readiness. So a lot of this is about data and infrastructure. And like to Bob's point, the more proprietary data that you have to accomplish whatever your mission or objectives are, and you have it structured and ready to be able to feed either an agent or an API or another person, that's going to dictate the speed and the ceiling with which you can rise with any AI, because it's just moving so fast. So that's going to be a core thing.
Awesome. Bob?
Yeah, look, I think I'm most excited for getting rid of adjectives, right? I mean, look at the title of this session. It's a real mouthful, right? You're talking about an AI-driven future and partnership-led go-to-market, and I think in the future we won't have to say the AI-driven part in the same way we don't say that the way we buy stuff is computer-driven, or the way in which websites are cloud-driven, right? It's just the new operating model and operating system for how people exist on the planet in a modern technological society. And I kind of feel the same way about like partnership driven go to market. Like go to market to your opening point, Jay, 80% of it is already partnership driven. Like go-to-market is partnerships. It already is. And I think the farther we get along here with tightly coupling the work of partnership teams and the work of go-to-market teams into a singular entity where it just kind of functions because that is the operating model by which you grow businesses. Like that's the future I think we're headed to. So hopefully this exact conversation, if we have it again in 3 years, is just called go-to-market. And the AI and the partnership stuff is implied.
Yeah, that kind of central, CRO, taking marketing, sales, CX, and of course partnerships. And then obviously a big part of this is the integrations. That new buyer that I mentioned is an integration first buyer. I remember a couple of years ago when Apple was announcing their new iPhone, they mentioned that 79% of people won't buy a car unless it has Apple CarPlay. I'm sure Tim Cook meant to say Android Auto as well. He missed it, but can you imagine being in that industry? A $3 trillion industry, you're taking over a dealership from your great-great-grandparents, who had it for 120 years, and you're just about to lose 80% of your buyers because you don't have a tech integration. So the product teams are coming in to go to market like no time. And so this platform economy, which is synonymous with partnerships, is where the AI piece of it works. And it's pulling these tech integrations, the services partnerships, the channel partnerships, which I mentioned is over 75% of world trade, pulling together the co-marketing, co-selling, co-innovation, co-development, co-keeping, along with reselling and referring and all the other motions that we know, is complex. And connecting the dots is probably more complex than humans can do repeatedly. And this is kind of the story of AI long term, is the whole organization has to come together and serve the buyer at every moment and renew that buyer for every micro consumption, every subscription, for every moment. Thinking about that and surrounding that buyer. But the key word is surround when you think about platforms, and go to market won't work without partnerships. Julia?
Phenomenal discussion, Jay. Thank you so much. Dina, Bob, Megan, Blake. Let's do a shameless minute plug. Where can our community follow your work, latest research, companies thinking? Jay, let's start with you.
LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Bob.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn under Bob Moore. I have a relatively new book out called Ecosystem-Led Growth. You can pick up at any bookstore published by Wiley that goes into all this stuff, including the AI topic.
Amazing. Dina.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, Dina Habib Omera. Please link in with me, and happy to collaborate with you, share best practices and so forth together. Thank you.
Megan.
Yes, I think we're all on LinkedIn. I'll be there too.
Like,
Yeah.
company plug.
LinkedIn. Yeah. If you want to build with your ecosystem on social, company plug for Demandy. Let's create some content together.
Amazing. Thank you so much again.